good to be with you again today. I'm your host, Akin Ayeni, born-again Christian, family physician, addiction disease specialist, a servant of the Most High God, and also the senior pastor of the Lighthouse for All Nations in Marietta, Georgia. Today we're going to talk about the secret of eating with grace. The secret of eating with grace. There's a way in which you can eat with grace, with thankfulness to God, and you will not gain weight and you will not overeat. That's what we're going to be talking about. A lot of people have written a lot of books on diet, and on how people can stay in shape and eat the right food. We have enough books out there on what to eat, how much carbohydrate, how much protein, and how much fatty food we can eat. So the issue is not whether we don't know what to eat. The real issue is that a lot of people are still eating a lot of food and are still eating the wrong food because they are eating without grace and for the wrong reasons. So we're going to talk about why people don't eat right. What are the things that make people not eat right? People really generally overeat because their brain really has been misprogrammed to respond to all the wrong reasons for eating. Their brain has been misprogrammed at a particular point in time to respond to all the wrong reasons for eating. As an addiction disease specialist, I've seen this act itself out in people, even in areas that have nothing to do with food. You see, let me give you a good, vivid example. When a baby is being born and is coming out of the birth canal, and they clean the baby up and everything, and the baby starts crying, the first thing the mother does is she puts the breast milk in the baby's mouth. Now, the baby may just be that the room was too hot, but because the baby is crying, the first reaction of the mother is to put the breast milk in his mouth. Now, our brain is like a computer. It is wired to make us survive. So the brain picks up whatever we input into it as recommended for survival. So when the baby tastes the breast milk, it tastes good. The brain picks it up as recommended for survival. 2 hours later, if the baby cries again, the baby may be crying for any reason at all. It may just be that a spider crawled into the crib and bit the baby. The mother has only one way of pacifying the baby. Picks up the baby, gives the baby again breast milk. And so that is being reinforced in the brain that anytime there is any type of discomfort, it's time for breast milk. Now this baby becomes a toddler. He's running around with friends playing football. And then maybe one of his friends says, "I'm not playing with you anymore." So the baby runs home, the toddler runs home, feeling frustrated, and the mother says, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" He said, "I don't know. I think, oh, you want some food?" Yes, I think I want to eat." And the mother again brings out some food. Now maybe he can chew a little bit. They gave him some cookies. And now again, the brain is reinforcing again that anytime there's any frustration, it's time for the mouth gate to be opened up. So Imagine that baby now becoming a teenager. When he's depressed, he wants to eat. When he's anxious, he wants to eat. When he's lonely, he wants to eat. When he's worried, he wants to eat. So his brain has been misprogrammed to eat for all the wrong reasons. There is only one reason for us to eat: to stay alive, to finish the purpose that we are here for. If you listen to our message last week on purpose, we said we are here for a purpose. Our food, the food that we eat, is to give us energy to be able to fulfill the purpose of our being here on earth. Ecclesiastes chapter 5 verse 17 was describing someone that is eating like the person I just described. Ecclesiastes chapter 5 verse 17 says, all his days he eats in frustration, with affliction and anger. He said, all his days he eats in frustration, with affliction and anger. In fact, let me read the whole passage. There's more to that passage, which I want to discuss briefly. You see, there are a lot of people, especially in some of us who are working in big cities, in which we are always in a hurry. There are a lot of people, they wake up in the morning, rush to get to work. They wake up like about 5 or 6, get into their car, drive out in a hurry, drive through McDonald's or Burger King or Chick-fil-A, grab a sandwich, start talking on the phone about the work for the day, very frustrated, hurriedly, they just gobble down whatever they order. You see, that is not eating, my friend. You are eating without enjoying the food, without even giving it time to digest, without praying about it, if you're a Christian, without thanking God for the job, without thanking God for having the money to buy the food. You don't do any of that. Well, that is what they're saying here in Ecclesiastes chapter 5 verse 17. They say, all is this. He eats in darkness. I'll explain that in a minute. They say this man eats in darkness with great frustration, affliction, and anger. Then verse 18 said, then I realized that it is good and proper for a man to eat and drink and to find satisfaction for his toilsome labor under the sun during the few days of life God has given for him. For this is his lot. So, this man they are describing here, not only is he eating in frustration and affliction and anger, in fact, he's eating in frustration because he, in fact, doesn't even like his job. They said we should find satisfaction in our toilsome labor. In fact, toilsome labor is a curse. We're not supposed to toil in labor. That was the curse that came to Adam after the fall. But when you come to Christ, you are to have labor of love. You are to enjoy what you're doing. You are to say to yourself, I am the planting of the Lord in this workplace. I'm here for a purpose. I'm here to be a light shining in darkness. You have to rehearse that until you begin to enjoy the job, saying to yourself that I'm doing this job as unto the Lord who planted me here. When you begin to enjoy it, then you begin to enjoy everything else that go with it. You will not eat in darkness, in frustration, in affliction, and in anger. What do they mean by this guy eating in darkness? You know, the opposite of darkness is light. The opposite of darkness is light. To eat in darkness compared to eating in light is, when you eat in light, you eat with revelation. You know the purpose for the food. But when you eat in darkness, you are eating without revelation of what the food is meant for. That means you are eating for all the wrong reasons, like that I mentioned earlier. Eating when you are worried, eating when you are frustrated, eating when you are angry, eating when you are anxious, eating when you are depressed, eating when you are lonely. Those are not the reasons to eat. You are supposed to eat gracefully. That's why we're going to talk about the grace of eating. You're supposed to eat with grace to do what God has called you to do. The reason why people eat in darkness and eat in frustration is because they have misconstrued the hunger and the satisfaction center in the brain. In fact, because man is in 3 dimensions, spirit, soul, and body, man is a spirit, he has a soul, and he lives in a body. Hunger, too, is in 3 dimensions. There is spiritual hunger, there is emotional hunger in the second realm, and there is physical hunger. So if I eat food, physical food, to pacify depression, I'm using food to pacify an emotional hunger. If I eat cookies when I'm anxious, I'm using food to pacify an emotional hunger. If I eat fried fish when I'm worried, I'm eating food to pacify an emotional hunger. You see, it's not everything that growls in the stomach that is due to physical hunger. When you are anxious, guess what? You can secrete acid into your stomach. But it is not because you are hungry physically. You are just hungry. There's an emotional emptiness that is causing you to secrete that acid because the brain has been misprogrammed, so that the brain will be dictating to you that you need food. You really don't need food. What you need right there is Tums to neutralize that acid. You don't need to, especially if you're just eating. Most people, they might have just eaten an hour or 2 ago, and then they get anxious for some food, for some things that they are doing at work. Then they grab the cookies. They have cookies and peanuts and all sorts of things in the office. So you kind of eat all day. You nibble at all sorts of things. You are not eating with grace. You are eating in darkness. We will not eat in darkness in Jesus' name after we finish hearing this message. Because by the time you understand this, you will be able to, and if you want a copy of this message, you can write to us. By the time you understand this, you'll be able to control your hunger to the extent that you will eat gracefully and you will have no issue with weight gain anymore. So there is emotional hunger. There is also spiritual hunger. Spiritual hunger can come also if there is spiritual emptiness for one reason or another. One can have spiritual emptiness for several reasons. Like I said before, you can have emotional emptiness and emotional hunger for several reasons. You can be depressed because you lost a job. You can be angry because you've just had an argument with your spouse, and you can be anxious because you are going for a job interview and you are nervous about it. Those are all emotional hungers. But then you can have, like I said, spiritual hunger. And you cannot pacify that with physical or material or food. You can't pacify that with bread, tangible bread, because it's in the spirit realm. It's in the intangible realm. You can't use a tangible thing to pacify an intangible, non-physical realm. You can ask me, okay, what do you mean by spiritual hunger? Now, let me give you examples of spiritual hunger. Guilt is an example of spiritual hunger. For example, if, let's say, a 16-year-old girl had a boyfriend, and then she's been well trained at home not to have premarital sex, and she had the premarital sex, she got pregnant, she felt guilty about it, her parents disowned her, and then she started living with an uncle or an auntie somewhere. That guilt may continue to haunt her, and she begins to eat anytime she remembers what happened. Guilt can make people eat for the wrong reason. How about shame? You can have a shame, let's say, giving an example, someone who has a boyfriend and then her best friend started going out with the boy and the boy left her and she feels disgraced. That can cause shame. Or even rejection. Somebody left you for another person. Rejection too is a spiritual problem. And if you have guilt, you eat because of guilt, you eat because of shame, you eat because of rejection, you are using food to want to pacify a spiritual problem. It won't work. It will just make you gain weight. That's like abusing the faculty, that faculty. Now, there's one example in the Bible in which this was well demonstrated very well. Someone who understood this principle very well in the Bible. Jesus demonstrated it. The Bible is full of so many rich jewels of example. I mean, it's incredible that some of the things that God reveals to us in the Bible that even medical science did not teach me, because medical science believes only in the physical realm, but God knows that man is three-dimensional. Man is a spirit, he has a soul, and he lives in a body. But anytime I learn something from medical science as a physician, I pass it through the prism of the cross, and God reveals to me the root of the problem and why people do what they do. As long as you yield to him, you too can use that principle. Let me share with you something that I saw in the book of John. John chapter 4, starting from verse 4. They said, in verse 4, they were talking about Jesus. It said, John 4, verse 4. They said he must needs go through Samaria. Jesus was on a journey. And then he said, I have need. There's a need to go through Samaria. There's a need in Samaria, more or less. Then cometh he to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near to the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. Then cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus said unto her, Give me to drink. Verse 8 says, For his disciples were gone away unto the city to buy meat. Note that very well. I'm coming to it. Then said the woman of Samaria unto him, Now how is it that thou, being a Jew, ask drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Then Jesus answered and said unto her, If thou knowest the gift of God, and who is it that said to thee, Give me to drink, thou wouldst have asked of him, and he will have given thee living water. Then the woman said unto him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. From whence then hast thou that living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well, and drank therefore himself, and of his children, and of his cattle? Jesus answered and said unto her, Whosoever drink of this water will thirst again. But whosoever drink of the water that I shall give shall never thirst, but the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life. Then the woman said unto him, Sir, give me this water, that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw again. Jesus said unto her, Go call thy husband and come hither. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Jesus said unto her, Thou hast said well, I have no husband, for thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom now thou hast not is thy husband. In that said thou truly. The woman said unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Jesus said unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh, when you shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship ye know not what, but we know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him in spirit and in truth. Then woman said to him, I know the Messiah cometh, which is called Christ. When he is come, he will tell us all things. Jesus said to her, I that speak unto thee am he. And upon this came his disciples, and marveled that he talked with the woman. Yet no man said, What seekest thou, or why talkest thou with her? The woman then left her water pot, and went into the city, and said unto the men, Come see a man which told me all things that I ever did. Is not this the Christ? Then they went out of the city, and came unto him. In the meanwhile, his disciples prayed him, saying, Master, eat. Then he said unto them, I have meat to eat that you know not of. Therefore said the disciples to one another, Had anyone brought him something to eat? Then Jesus said, My meat is to do the will of him that sent me, and to finish his work. Now, I read all this for a reason. Jesus was coming to Samaria. He said, I have need to go to Samaria. What that means is there is a spiritual need in Samaria. I'm hungry to fulfill a spiritual thing in Samaria. He had spiritual hunger for Samaria. Then he got to the well. When he got to the well, he looked around. He did not see that which will fulfill that spiritual hunger. So he felt wearied. He felt kind of exhausted, unfulfilled. His disciples thought his weariness was because of physical hunger. They concluded that it was because of physical hunger. And then they decided to go into the market to buy some meat. While they went away, the woman came to the well, and Jesus ministered to her. As he was ministering to her, he became fulfilled. His spiritual hunger went away. His spiritual hunger was filled up. When they now came back with the food, they said, Master, eat. He said, I have meat you know not of. He has already eaten. He was strengthened. The joy of the Lord had become his strength. The joy of serving the Lord gave him nutrient. The joy of serving the Lord gave him nutrient. He did not misconstrue a spiritual hunger for a physical hunger. So he did not use physical or material food to pacify a spiritual hunger. He put hunger in the right perspective. That is what all of us need to learn to do. We have to put our hunger in the right perspective. There is a spiritual hunger, there is an emotional hunger or soulish hunger, and there is physical hunger. You cannot use material food like bread or meat or chicken to pacify an emotional hunger. And you cannot use any of those to also pacify a spiritual hunger. If you do that, and you continue to do that, you will continue to gain weight. And even the woman at the well, she also had problem. She also was thirsty. She continued to come to that place because of spiritual thirst. In fact, the reason why she had 5 husbands was because she was a mongrel Jew. The Jews didn't accept them. So she was rejected. She's been rejected. So she was continually thirsty and hungry for someone to make her feel adequate. She had a deep-seated feeling of inadequacy. I don't know this woman. I bet she may even have some problem with cravings too, you know. But I don't know whether his craving will be food or not. The Bible says people who are not satisfied, their belly becomes their God. Their belly becomes their cravings. But my point here is, she has had 5 husbands because she had a spirit of rejection that has been haunting her, because she was in a rejected race. And because she was in a rejected race, she was continually not satisfied. There's a frustration. There's a deep-seated feeling of inadequacy. There's a deep-seated feeling of rejection. And because she was trying to get a man to affirm her, she was trying to get a man to make her feel adequate, men were taking advantage of her. So she went from first husband to second husband to third husband to fourth husband to fifth husband. And after marrying 5 times, she got so frustrated, she was afraid of having another divorce. So she started just living with another man the 6th time around. But guess what? She met the perfect man, the 7th man, Jesus himself. And the day he hungered for righteousness and thirst for righteousness, she was filled by meeting Jesus Christ at the well. And Jesus filled her hunger. He filled her thirst. And from that time on, she was never hungry. She was never thirsty for spiritual things. In fact, she automatically became an evangelist. She went into her city and started calling people, come see someone who told me all that I have done. This must be the Messiah. So my point here is, if you learn to put your hunger in the right perspective, you will eat the right thing, you eat at the right time for the right reason, and you will not eat to pacify anger, you will not eat to pacify loneliness, you will not eat to pacify worry or rejection or shame or guilt. You eat for the right reason, you will develop the grace of eating right. And once you develop that grace, because revelation has come, you are not eating in darkness, grace and truth comes hand to hand. The grace always accompanies truth. But once you have the truth about eating, you will eat gracefully and you will not gain weight anymore. You will just have the right weight to do that which God has called you to do. You will eat for the right reason, and as long as you eat for the right reason, you will not gain weight, and you'll be exactly where God wants you to be. That's going to have to do it for us today.